The Eighth Reflection, A Variable God. Episode 6. The Final Door. They stepped from the starlit archway into a place that felt both familiar and alien. To their astonishment, they found themselves back in the pod, the same spherical chamber in the bunker-like facility. The harnesses retracted with a soft mechanical click. A slight hiss announced the pod's door sliding open. But instead of the silent, empty hall from which they'd first come, the corridor outside now gleamed with white light, almost sterile, reminiscent of a hospital hallway. As they emerged, disoriented, they noticed subtle changes. The walls were pristine, the air smelled faintly of antiseptic, and an overhead PA system played a gentle chime. A man stood at the far end of the corridor, clad in a simple grey suit. The same man, Eleanor recalled, who had approached her after the Chicago lecture. She glanced at Varun to confirm the memory. He nodded grimly. "Follow me," the man said. His tone was polite, neutral. He turned and led them through a series of corridors lined with glass windows. Beyond each window lay rooms filled with advanced equipment, quantum servers, MRI-like machines, metal pods reminiscent of the one they'd occupied. Technicians in lab coats moved about, seemingly oblivious to their presence. "This place looks operational," Varun murmured. "Not abandoned at all." Eleanor's mind raced. Had they time-traveled, shifted into a parallel version of the facility? Was this yet another level of the labyrinth, an illusion shaped to look real? Finally, the man led them into a conference room. Smooth white walls, a circular table, comfortable chairs. He gestured for them to sit, then took a seat himself. "Congratulations," he said quietly. "You've navigated the labyrinth's crucial gates. Few ever make it so far. Now you stand at the threshold of the final door. But you must understand, crossing that door changes everything." Eleanor felt her pulse pounding in her ears. She glanced at Varun. "Who are you?" He gave a small, enigmatic smile. "Call me an observer. I represent an organization that has, for centuries, curated knowledge about the deeper architecture of reality. Kings, priests, scientists, many names have existed for us. We guard the illusions, ensuring only those who are truly ready see beyond them." A swirl of questions and outrage rose in Eleanor's mind. She wanted to demand specifics. Instead, she asked, "And what is the final door?" The man's eyes flickered with what might have been sympathy or condescension. "It is the recognition that the universe is an escape room you build around yourself. Once you see that, you can leave the puzzle. But leaving means you no longer participate in the illusions that keep most of humanity grounded. You'll exist at a vantage where the entire labyrinth is transparent, but so is your old sense of identity. You will, in a sense, be outside the game." Varun exhaled shakily. "So if we do that, what happens to us in the ordinary world? Our lives, our research, our bodies?" "Your physical forms may persist," said the man, "but your perspective shifts so radically that you will no longer be bound by everyday illusions. In many traditions, it is called enlightenment or gnosis. In a more modern sense, you'd be the user who has root access to the cosmic operating system. It's exhilarating and also lonely. The illusions that once gave your life color, time, hierarchy, self, become optional filters." Eleanor's throat felt tight. That's a big choice to make in a single conversation. Indeed. That's why the labyrinth never forces it. You've been prepared. Some part of you has chased these deeper truths your entire life. Now that you stand here, you may see it as an inevitability or an invitation. A hush. Then Varun asked, "If we choose not to step through the final door?" The man spread his palms gently. "You awaken back in your old lives. The memory of these experiences will remain, but hazy. You'll continue your research, your journey, as you see fit. Possibly you'll return to the labyrinth in another manner, another lifetime, or not at all." Eleanor and Varun exchanged glances. They had traveled so far, unraveling illusions that spanned personal, mythic, and cosmic domains. To turn back at the threshold felt anticlimactic, yet stepping forward felt terrifying. The threshold decision. The man led them down one more corridor to a vault-like door made of polished metal. Upon it were etched every symbol they'd encountered. The Eye of Horus fractal, quantum gates, religious icons from across the ages, the labyrinth circles, the Ouroboros serpents. Over the door was carved, no physics in dreams, and no hierarchy in death. Something about that phrase lodged in Eleanor's chest. She recalled the labyrinth's lessons. In dream states, the usual laws of physics break down, revealing that our unconscious can shape reality. In death, all social or biological hierarchies evaporate, leveling kings and beggars alike. The door symbolized an ultimate perspective, one in which illusions of cosmic law and illusions of power would be recognized as illusions indeed. "You have a choice," said the grey-suited man. "Step through, and the labyrinth will be laid bare. Or walk away, returning to the illusions that bind your fellow humans. Neither choice is wrong. One path is acceptance, the other path is deeper participation in the game." Eleanor's mind danced with chaos. Her father's passing, her quantum research, the puzzle references to cosmic illusions. She thought about what it meant to see beyond everything. Would she lose her ability to savor a sunrise, to laugh at a silly joke? Or would those joys remain but be seen as ephemeral illusions, precious precisely because they are illusions? Varun's expression mirrored her tumult. She could almost see the equations playing out behind his eyes, the unstoppable logic that if the puzzle is solvable, one must solve it, but also the human longing for relationships, for belonging within the illusions that define them as real. Crossing the final door. At last, silently, they joined hands and approached the door. The man stepped aside, his face betraying neither approval nor disappointment. The door swung inward of its own accord, revealing a swirling void, a corridor of impossible color, like an aurora that spanned the entire electromagnetic spectrum and more. They looked at each other, hearts pounding. With tentative steps, they crossed the threshold. For a moment, they drifted in absolute silence, absolute darkness. Then, with a jarring sense of perspective, they beheld the entire labyrinth from a vantage outside it, like stepping out of a fractal and seeing its shape in total. They saw themselves, seeds of consciousness, moving through illusions. They saw the repeated cosmic motifs in every tradition. They saw how the labyrinth looped across galaxies, timelines, how every puzzle was an echo of the same singular truth, that existence is a grand mirror reflecting the interplay of mind and cosmos. A final voice, or perhaps many voices, whispered, "You see now, the labyrinth is you. You are the labyrinth. Every gate you passed was a threshold in your own being. Escape was never external. It was an unveiling of the illusions, layers of cosmic dreaming." They understood that crossing the final door meant they were free to remain in the illusions or to hold them lightly. In that instant, a new kind of knowledge poured into them, knowing that matter, time, identity, all could be shaped by consciousness. Their old anxieties, the intellectual tension, they recognized them as fleeting waves in a boundless ocean of existence. They hovered in that void outside the labyrinth for what could have been seconds or eons. Then, gently, they felt themselves lowered back into the sphere of normal perception, like divers surfacing from a deep dive, aware of the ocean's depths, but returning to the shallows. Waking World Epilogue. They found themselves standing in the same desert as before, outside the bunker. The sun was just rising, painting the sky in soft pink and gold. Their cars were parked exactly where they had left them. There was no sign of the advanced facility, no sign of the man in the grey suit. The bunker entrance looked rusted and sealed, as if it hadn't been opened in decades. Eleanor and Varun exchanged stunned looks. Could it have all been a dream? The battered nature of the bunker suggested it had never been operational. Yet they felt it, a shift so profound it resonated in their bones. A simultaneous buzz in their pockets startled them, their phones each with a new text message. You have seen beyond the veil. Remember, once you see the labyrinth, you may exit it. But in exiting, you re-enter by choice. The illusions are your playground now. They stared at each other, unspeaking. What to do next? They could drive back to their old lives, publish papers, keep teaching, keep coding. But both understood, with a clarity that left them breathless, that everything from that point forward would be imbued with the knowledge that illusions are illusions. Time, matter, identity. These could be shaped. The labyrinth was both infinite and infinitely intimate. Varun gave a half smile, sadness and wonder in his eyes. So do we keep playing? Eleanor exhaled, tears unexpectedly springing to her eyes. We do, she said, voice steady. But now we know it's a game. That's the difference. We're free, but we can still love, still learn, still be enthralled by sunsets and code and neural mysteries. They climbed into their cars, parted ways with unspoken promises to reconnect soon. As Eleanor drove eastward, the desert dawn reflecting off her windshield, she felt a swelling sense of peace, and also, strangely, an electrifying sense of purpose. In glimpsing the labyrinth from the outside, she'd gained the ultimate vantage, and could still return to the inside, to share it with others, to shape the illusions with compassion and creativity. For the rest of humanity, the dreamlike illusions would continue unchallenged, unless and until they, too, heard the summons from the labyrinth. Until they were ready to pick up the labyrinth key and see that cosmic door swing open. Only then would they truly understand. There is no physics in dreams, and there is no hierarchy in death. The final paradox of freedom is that once you know you can leave, you can re-enter wholeheartedly, playing your role with joy and reverence. The labyrinth becomes less a prison than a playground of infinite possibility. And perhaps that, more than any cosmic exit, is the sweetest liberation of all.